Hi, this is Chris Barthouse of NAFA, Indiana, speaking to you from the Community Veterans Memorial in Munster, Indiana. It's one of the most impressive and comprehensive displays of its type in the country. Its 6.5 acres holds 7 bronze monuments honoring the sacrifices of the men and women of our armed forces during the major conflicts of the 20th century. I'm joined today by one of our NAFA, Indiana legends, Dean Sangalis. Welcome, Dean.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
You know, this monument is arranged so that the visitor can literally walk through the history of the 20th century. Dean, you lived through most of the timeline here. Why don't we just take a walk, take a little trip through your life?
Let's do that.
Now, 1929 we're coming up on. You're less than 2 years old when the stock market crashes.
Yes.
So I would imagine your early memories of childhood are during the Great Depression.
Yes, they are. My dad lost everything. Well, he had some confectionaries, and he came over from Europe as a young man. Didn't even have an 8th grade education. Was very successful. Then the stock market crashed. He lost his stores, lost his business, lost money in the bank. So there were times rather difficult at that time.
So how was life for you then?
Well, everybody was poor, but no one knew it. We're on the same boat.
Now, a lot of people that will be watching this, their most difficult time they remember is the Great Recession a few years ago. How does the Great Recession compare to the Great Depression?
In my lifetime, nothing has compared as bad as the Great Depression.
I would believe it.
In those days, I don't believe they had any unemployment insurance for the worker. There weren't the benefits you have now for the unemployed. There weren't as many welfare programs out, so you relied on your neighbor relatives to assist you in case you were in a dire straits.
1941, Pearl Harbor's attacked. What were your thoughts when you first heard about Pearl Harbor being attacked?
I was surprised in a sense, and yet I wasn't surprised because from reading the different books, you realize the Japanese were preparing for that war for over 20 years. And then I think it would be a protracted war, and we would be involved sooner or later in that. I had 2 first cousins that were in the Marine Corps. One was a pilot, one was an infantry. They were stateside, but then one was on Iwo Jima. He received a battlefield commission to second lieutenant. He was a gunnery sergeant. The other one was a pilot and flew in the Pacific.
1946. What happens in 1946 for you?
I joined the Marine Corps.
Where do you go for basic training?
I went to boot training in Parris Island, South Carolina. It was
a very popular place.
Very popular. It was 12 weeks of good training. Well, I was in pretty good physical shape because I wrestled in high school. The mental was something else, but you have to cope with it. Anyway, I survived it.
Now, where did you serve after you finished basic training?
I took a troop train to California and then went to China.
Okay.
I served in North China.
So you're a China Marine.
Yes, I am.
And what you're a member of the China Marine Organization, aren't you?
I'm the past president, yes.
Yes, there you are. Another leadership role for Dean.
1st Marine Division went to China to send the Japanese back home from North China.
Okay.
That was part of our job. When I got there, they were mostly gone at the time. And so we occupied North China. And then we changed the occupation to guest of North China.
Okay.
And then we left for Guam in I left in 47, May I believe, because we didn't want to become embroiled with the North Chinese, the communists and the nationals at that point, yeah.
But what were the conditions in China then?
Well, you're reading about China in a geography book and you're there and it was pitiful, a lot of misery. Mm-hmm. You never seen a country so poor. And the people just barely existed. The Korea War broke out in 1950, and the Marine Corps called everybody back on active duty. I even got called back, but I received a deferment to finish college as long as I agreed to go to OCS when I graduated, which I did. So in 1952, then when I graduated, I went to Marine Corps Officer Training, Quantico, Virginia.
And that was at Quantico.
Quantico,
While
yeah.
you were at Quantico, you met a fairly significant individual.
Yes, I met a young lady on Liberty, and it was a blind date, and we've been married now for 65 years.
Proving powers of forgiveness of wives. So that was great. So after OCS, what happens next?
I go to Camp Helen on duty, then I go with the 3rd Marine Division to Japan on duty, and then I go to Korea on duty.
And where were you in Korea?
I was in Munsanee. It was about 80 miles north, I recall, of Seoul. We were manning what used to be the old battle line with trenches. We're tied into the British on one side. And the shooting was over at that time, but we were still patrolling.
And did you make any contact with Chinese troops or
We
North
could
Korean
see them,
troops?
they could see us, but it was pretty peaceful.
So everybody was still pretty much...
You're an alert, yeah.
But you were there in January. How was Korea in January?
Coldest place I've been in the world.
And your living conditions, I imagine, were fairly primitive.
They were. We just lived in a tent.
So how long were you in Korea?
I left Korea in August of that year.
And where did you go from there?
I went to Great Lakes, Illinois, Marine Barracks there, and I received my release from active duty in September of '54.
So now you're out of the Marine Corps the second time. What happens?
I got a job with Liberty Mutual in Chicago. I was a credit analyst for them. Reconnected with my bride, my wife-to-be, and then we got married. And she had a job in D.C. working for the Navy Department. So I moved to D.C. to be with her, with Liberty Mutual. But I didn't like working for a major corporation because you had to pay, you had to wait for someone to move up before you could move up. And when I got my wife pregnant, I decided to make a move back to Indiana to go into the life insurance business.
Now, how did you get involved with Northwestern Mutual?
Well, when I came back off active duty, I joined the Marine Corps Reserve. I walked into the training center. The executive officer was the man who taught me basics tactics at Quantico, Virginia, and he was with Northwestern Mutual. So he enticed me to come with Northwestern Mutual on a part-time basis, which I did in '55.
And so how long have you been in the insurance and investment business now?
This is my 65th year, including part-time. Next year will be 66 years in July.
So do you think you'll stick with it?
For a few more years, yeah.
Okay. And you've had quite a career in both the Marine Corps and in the business. How do you juggle that, having a Marine Corps Reserve career and a very successful business career, and also you were a volunteer high school wrestling official, correct?
Yes. My wife tells me we survived our marriage because I was always gone the first 30 years. And that's the truth. Well, you call it about time management. Time management, you know. I loved what I did and just found time for it.
How have you seen the financial services business that you're involved with change over time?
Oh, it's radically changed, radically changed. You have more products now, you have excellent training, and of course there's more supervision now in the old days. When I started, they taught you the book, go get them, you know, and you learn. I think study groups really got me going because I would learn from experts who've been around for a long time. That's great interchange of information, and that's how I learned.
Now, you've been fairly successful at this, haven't you?
Depends what you define as successful.
Well, I mean,
Always could have done better.
You're a 61-year qualifying member of the MDRT.
Well, that was always a goal. Being a qualifying member of the round table every year, that means you're doing something right along the way.
What do you attribute this success of yours?
Working your plan. Well, I was taught in the old days that you write the lives, the premium and the volume will take care of itself.
Okay.
So I wrote lives. Many times I had over 250 lives a year.
Wow.
You know, in those days it was a one appointment sale.
How did you get because you got to get a lot of referrals to get 250 lives. So how did you go about getting, because you were kind of native to this area, but you've been here.
I would ask for them.
So did you have a plan? You just go and say, give me your Rolodex, or?
No, they refer people to me, and then I would tell them, okay, I'll get you a steak dinner. And of course, steak dinners were $2.50 in those days, so so I could afford it. So I could afford it, yeah.
Okay.
No, you develop nest, church, business communities, clubs, things like that.
What do you think your most successful tactic was?
Working for people to suit their needs.
Now, you've also been very much involved with NAFA, haven't you?
Over the years, yes. I believe in giving back, and because I learned from NAFA, so I've been very fortunate to go through the chairs years ago.
What has NAFA meant to your career?
It meant quite a bit. It gave you guidance along the way, meeting the people that were very successful. You learn from them, rubbing elbows with the people who really made it to the top, and picking up their ideas.
What advice would you give to new advisors that are just starting their careers in this business?
Well, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be hard. It may be brutal, but you have to look at the end of the rainbow. If you work your plan and can take rejection, they're not rejecting you. They may reject your product, but not you personally. And you have to have a thick skin.
What aspect of your financial services career do you take the most pride in?
I have a lot of pride working with my clients, helping them out in situations. You know, you develop a great relationship with them, and you become a counselor with them, not necessarily an agent or financial advisor. I get a lot of pride in doing that.
You should have a lot of pride with NAFA. You were so significant for the Northwest Indiana chapter of NAFA, Indiana. They actually named an award after you, the Dean Sangalis Award. How did that come about?
I don't know. I was completely surprised. Apparently, I did a good snow job on it. if you're running a competition and or you see this man has a good product, I don't disturb the product. You have a good agent, so leave it the way it is. Even though you know the product may not be as good as yours or maybe not the right design. So you try to uphold the other agent. And that does travel around, on that basis there. You don't look for the sale, but you look to be fair to your client and service their needs. And over a period, because I've been around a long time, I guess it developed that way.
Now let's get back to your Marine Corps career. You had a very lengthy career, rose to Major General. What in that career is your best memory?
Being selected by your peers into a leadership position. When I was a young enlisted guy, general was God. In fact, when I was enlisted, I only saw one general my whole career. To achieve that rank to me was in my case, quite an accomplishment.
What did you learn along the way there to become a general? You must have learned an awful lot of lessons going from private
structure,
to general.
discipline, set high standards, make the difficult move when you have to make it.
And did that translate into your business career as well?
Yes. Well, I'm a pretty well disciplined person, so I work my plan and I work hard. I used to work 6.5 days a week. I take care of my client, sometimes at the sacrifice of seeing the family for dinner, but
What would you have to say to the current leadership of NAFA, Indiana?
Well, before the current leadership, I want to say that I'm very thankful that I belonged to NAFA all these years. It's been very instrumental in my career, what they've done for us nationally in the past and what they're doing currently. And I particularly want to thank Joe Serla for his great leadership for the state of Indiana.